you don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
Are you starting to?
No. I'm
I've
still
got
on the same boat that I was before. Like it could be, but I don't know. I don't have any reason to believe they're real. You know?
You just think everyone else is liars.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I've never had a paranormal experience, so
I
I don't know.
I just imagine you being one of those slightly condescending people where it's like, I believe that you believe you saw that. I
Yeah, that might be me.
believe that you believe, like, that nothing's worse when someone's like, well, I believe you felt that way, or, I believe that you believe, or whatever. You know what I'm getting at, but
Yeah.
yeah. Old Parish Cemetery.
Yeah. Start
York,
with.
Maine, because there's actually more.
Oh yeah, I
Than,
imagine it's a pretty common name.
what is a parish? Is that
It's
like
something to do with a church. I don't know. I think a parish is like a type of Methodist church, not Methodist, Protestant church maybe. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just assuming. But what
That's interesting.
kind of spooky lore did you find out?
Mostly just surrounding the witch's grave, but I want to go into your part first
Well,
because mine's better.
I'll be honest. I think we should start with the spooky stuff because a lot of mine is just debunking the witch theory.
I have the debunk stuff too.
Yeah. Well,
What
did you find as far
let's
as like?
I want to save the witch's grave for the end though.
Okay.
Like,
Well.
so I want to hear the other graves that you looked at, and
Okay.
let's actually start with that tall one.
Okay.
Did you do anything on that?
Yeah, I read a little bit about that guy. So that guy's name was. It was like his gravestone. First of all, was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the size of a person, really wide. He was like a local politician at the time, and he was actually really involved in the revolution. Not as a revolutionary, as he was a loyalist.
Yeah.
He did not believe we should be splitting from Britain. He believed that we should continue to rely on Britain, and was often like.
So he was a redcoat.
He was. He would often debate John Adams and argue with him about splitting with England. Very staunch loyalist. His grandfather was a judge on the Salem witch trials.
Mm-hmm.
And his grandfather put this guy to death named Reverend Burroughs, who was a reverend. He had a church. And I guess there was witnesses that claimed they saw this guy lift a barrel with his finger.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, John Sayward, whose stone this was, his grandfather put this dude to death and, had him hung. But
yes. Also, I couldn't remember which one because Mary Nasson, the witch's grave.
Yep.
She was buried 80 years after the Salem witch trials happened.
Yep.
But I was reading in some of the superstitions behind the grave that he was one of the first to accuse Mary Nasson of being a witch.
That's interesting because in all of my stuff, I read that there was no evidence that there was any accusation that she even was a witch.
But she wasn't accused until years after her death.
Oh.
So there was no accusation until years after she had been buried.
Okay,
already.
yes, that lines up.
And so the slab that's on top of Mary Nasson's grave also came later because of the fear of her rising again.
Yep.
And story says the slab didn't do anything because she has risen.
Really?
Yes. There are spooky stories behind her.
Give me one
But
of them.
first I'll go. Let's go into Mary Nasson because that's kind of a bad deal. You've been buried for some years, and then everyone's like, "Bet she's a witch."
See, that's what I'm saying too, because like from what I read about her, she was actually like well liked in the community. Her grave says that she was like a loving wife and a tender parent.
So she was, yes, on her headstone it says the loving parent and wife and a tender parent. And one of the rumors is, along with that started it, is her husband had wrote on the grave to when his dust can mingle with hers. So that's another like speculation because I have like the why. She was actually like they renowned her as a white witch, which is I guess
she was like a peaceful witch.
Peaceful.
She wasn't into the dark magic.
Because she was only 29 when she died.
Yeah.
So, younger than us. Well, not you. But I keep forgetting you're not mine. But she actually had 6 children.
Really?
She died for the 6th, though.
Oh, wow.
It says she died after the 6th child was born. So I'm assuming childbirth complications. Because I couldn't find the how she died, but I didn't dig into that part too much. But she met and married Samuel Nasson. I forget what her maiden name was, but I had it somewhere. And then it became known as the witch's grave because she actually was a noted and respected herbalist in the community. And because of her knowledge in healing with plants, she became known as the White Witch. And she also was a skilled exorcist who rid many houses of demons and afflictions in her time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. It was, and especially because you don't think of a skilled, because exorcist, I think you're stereotypical, like, Catholic priest going in there with holy water and stuff, but hers was more of like an herbalist approach to it. And then, of course, when the cement slab was placed is when the rumors really started to spread of her being a witch. But the cement slabs are common in New England.
Yes.
And at York, Maine, this old parish cemetery, the reason that there's other graves with that cement slab too. But I think hers is the only one still standing that has the cement slab. I think most of them were removed when the wall was erected.
Yep.
Because originally the cement slabs were placed there to keep the pigs and the cattle from grazing over the grave. So I think a lot of the rumors started with that.
And just to go on the cement slabs, we've actually seen at other graveyards we've gone before, sometimes they don't do cement slabs, they just do a giant boulder that they'll bury on top of the coffin. And like you just said, common practice, they call them wolf stones. And it's to keep animals from digging up the freshly buried bodies, because the pigs, the wolves, things would dig them up and like eat them. So yeah, that's most likely what the slab was. Not to keep her out, but to keep things from eating her body.
So this 29-year-old, poor woman who's like buried and became an urban legend, and that's and the volunteers who work to upkeep the cemetery now, they have gone lengths to like debunk that she was a witch, because she probably wasn't.
Yeah, no.
At all. Like, because all of these rumors started after, and then they just had, she was an herbalist, and even the depiction that her husband had etched in her headstone, is a woman in, I read 2 things. Someone said loosely robed with an updo hairstyle that looks like kind of 2 balls of yarn on top of her head. But they believe, like, there's the loosely robed, but then there's the people who are like, no, those are wings, like, to rest in peace after, like, you've died and stuff. But other people say, no, they're witches' robes or whatever, and just, there's so many theories that go around it that's insane to me. But she is believed to not haunt the graveyard itself, but the playground across the street. And if I had read that beforehand, I would have like paid more attention to the playground across the street.
Yeah.
The other rumor is that her cement slab is always warm, and we went on a cooler day, and I should have like, because I'm weird about touching things too. So the other unique part of her stone slab is it's decorated. It's decorated with coins, pennies, nickels, dimes. It's decorated with like a mason jar was on there. And then there's like herbs, old flowers, and then a lot of like witchy stuff because of the urban legend and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was reading this one article that goes into transfer of energy, and how it flows freely, and energy like never leaves. And it was kind of going into why she might haunt that, and it's because of the negative energy around her being a witch and stuff could have like awakened the spirit and stuff. actually kind of a happy ghost story. Because it's quite obvious she loved children, as her ghost not only roams the burial ground, but the playground across the street. Many mothers have sworn seeing their children being pushed on the swings in the playground near the cemetery by an unseen force, and when the children were asked, they say it's a nice young lady named Mary, and she's also been said to give them wildflowers. So any local will tell you there's nothing to fear in the spirit of Mary Nassen.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a heartwarming, like, there's no,
Yeah.
like, oh, it's gonna come and get you. It's like she likes pushing kids on the swings.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of like a heartwarming thing to read, but I was actually just very interested in this one lady's theory on, like, the how energy it flows freely and it is always there. So why do houses get haunted? Well, if a family grows up in a home and it's their home, there's memories, there's things that create all this energy, that it's easier for spirits to stay. So I just thought that was kind of cool. But it goes for the same as, like, negative energy can also, like, awaken or stir up a spirit, so to speak.
Hmm.
But it was a really interesting read.
Yeah. See, I actually kind of like
And I read several articles where that Tallgrave, that man's name, you never said it.
Jonathan Sayward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sayward. He had something to do with the original accusation or something.
Really?
Or
That's
his
a fact.
grandson did. I can't
Someone
remember
in his family,
exactly, but
maybe.
someone in his family. And the last thing I'll say on it too is the other rumor was that her grave was unkept, and at the time she was buried, it was the responsibility of families to go and upkeep her grave. Well, her husband moved to Sanford, Maine right after her death with
Yeah.
his kids. And with 6 kids and living far enough away, he didn't maintain the grave.
Yeah.
So that's also where the rumors started, is that she was... Because why wouldn't her family take... Because it was big then. Why is your family not taking care of you after death?
See, the grave site, too, this is a good segue into what I was actually looking into as well. So, where the witch lore came from, there was, yes, the story of the slab trying to keep her from rising. But another, like, unanswered question when they first started looking into the site was why she was separate from all of the rest of the people being buried. Because when you go to this graveyard, all of the stones seem to be, like, congregated onto the left side, and then the right side there's just, like, a bunch of them sporadically kind of spread around, Mary's being one of them. And early on, one of the ideas was, or questions was, why was she not buried with everybody else? Why was she buried all by herself over here? And one of the speculations was, well, maybe she wasn't worthy to be buried with everybody else, it being a, Puritan society at the time, or the end of the Puritan era, really. But after looking into it, she's not by herself at all. So when we first got there, there's that memorial talking about the Candlemas massacre, it's also called the Raid on York. And what that was in 1692, a French colonist from, the French colonies in northern Maine and Quebec, he had some kind of beef with York. I don't know what it was, but he had incited the Abenaki tribe to attack and raid York. And in 1692, it was in January, they raided, burnt down everything, destroyed the houses. They only left like 12 buildings standing. They killed 50 people and captured another 80. Like, just decimated this place. And at the time, all their infrastructure is gone. It's the middle of winter. They have no food. So they buried 48 of those people in unmarked graves in that cemetery. So, as I'm thinking about it, we're looking there. Now, later on, there was that cemetery across the way, the big new parish cemetery, or first parish cemetery is what it's called. That was started because they said at the time when they started it that cemetery we were in was full. But when you're looking at it, it doesn't look full.
Yeah.
So what I'm assuming is that side where Mary's buried, where it looks like she's by herself, I'm willing to bet those 48 unmarked graves are there. And she wasn't in fact buried by herself. There was most likely like markings back then. Maybe it was wood, maybe there was something else. But I'd be willing to bet that it wasn't as abandoned as it appears today. And again, she's not abandoned. I'm assuming those unmarked graves are actually buried there over by her. So that idea that she was separated and was unworthy of being buried with everybody else, I don't think holds
No,
much.
I think that just fed into the rumors, and that's why people have gone. My only theory was they could have done something where they were saving plots for her husband and her kids in the future. Because that's a pretty common family thing, at least for your husband, too.
Mm-hmm.
Please, I don't want to be buried next to you in death. I'm sick of you. Just kidding. But that was my only theory, because I also couldn't find anything, because I remember you mentioning that, but I couldn't find the articles, but I was also looking more in a different direction than you were. But it was fascinating.
Yeah, that was
read about it. That
was a cool cemetery to go to for sure.
Yes, but I like hearing stories of like there's like where there's spirits, but there's nothing to fear. Like I like hearing those stories that this woman even even in death, like pushes kids on the swings.
Yep.
Like she still loves children and has that nurturing.
And even though I didn't, like, early on when I started researching this, it was pretty clear to me that she wasn't a witch. But I did like that kind of with what the research that you just presented, that it kind of lines up the same. I'm like, well, if there is in fact a ghost and there is paranormal activity, I could see why, this nice, loving Christian woman who like died, was buried, and then years later after her death, like was labeled as a witch, and now all these like pagan people visit her grave, and she's like this like pagan icon now.
She is, because they leave like
imagine being
witchy things on her grave.
Imagine being that nice Christian woman and then being like, you're gonna be worshipped by a bunch of pagans and you're gone. You're gonna be like, God damn it. So anyway,
honestly,
where I was getting
based on like what her husband wrote, my guess is that they probably weren't very religious.
Maybe. Because this was after the Quaker movement,
Because they could have just been like, more, even if they did have faith in something, they could be more relaxed, like the more relaxed, because her headstone didn't have like, the
didn't have religious imagery.
It was a portrait of her, and I actually kind of like that he wrote, he looks forward to when his dust can mingle with hers. Usually it's like loving mother, caring wife, now with the Lord, or something. You'll see like, little things, or, I mean, yeah. So, they could have just been more like, we got faith, but we're kind of chill about it, so. I mean, I talked to you about this before, too. If I were to be buried after I die, will that be our offspring's problem? Because I'm completely content getting thrown in the trash if it's the cheapest method. Burials can be expensive. But if my head marker was going to have something, I'd want something so random that, like, just was something me, where people will go and, like, look at it and be like, what the hell? Why does she have a turtle and a duck carved into her headstone?
I saw a picture of a funny one the other day, because we do this podcast, the YouTube algorithm now suggests like a bunch of cemetery pages and whatnot, and I saw this one with like unique modern headstones, and the thumbnail for it was it's the front of a VW bus, and it has like it has the faces of the people buried there in the windshield. It's kind of creepy, but it's fun. But it kind of made me laugh. I was like, yeah, that's so many weird ones.
Because you think the older the grave, the more heavily like Christianity and that kind of stuff was.
Yeah.
More than I would say it is today. Like, I don't think it was as diverse back then as it is today. And then you have people who are like atheist, agnostic, Christian, Buddhist, etc., etc. You're used to like the ones that are, very religious, like the prayer hands, the cross, the even the Freemasons. Like, I'm sure there's still Freemason markers that are more modern dated than backdated. But I don't know. I think, like, thinking of the people I know and stuff, if they're to be buried, I feel like I'm not the only one who's like, I just want something random as hell carved in my thing. Yeah, I'm Christian, but put like, Batman carved into my headstone, or
Batman.
like just something to make people scratch their brains. Like, damn, she must have really liked Batman. Nah, just just
I want an ultra realistic, detailed Danny DeVito face. Just
okay. I got a new one. This is what I want if you guys decide to bury me, because I'm going first. Because yeah, so I'm gonna go first, and then you can be the sad one. But anyway, a detailed etching of Russell Crowe and his gladiator get up.
all right.
I always rave about that movie. Best movie ever.
Gladiator does rule.
Gladiator's a great movie. Great soundtrack, but let's not get off track. Because I can talk about Gladiator for a whole hour, so.
Alright.
Well, we've covered Mary. I don't even like saying the witch's grave, because that's what it's an urban legend.
Yeah.
With not a lot to back it up.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's like no evidence that she was a witch.
Yeah, I mean, the herbalist stuff but to me, the exorcism stuff doesn't say witch to me. That says, I've never heard of a witch really doing an exorcism.
Yeah.
But that could be my lack of knowledge in that area too. But like
that could be an urban legend in itself too.
They could be, yeah.